Welcome back, everybody, to the Historical Movies podcast. In this episode, we're looking at Das Boot, the World War II classic. We're going to be looking at some of the historical background, getting to grips with some of the trivia, and asking if this is the best submarine movie of all time. And to join me to do that is first-time guest on the podcast. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Michael Elkington, a Doctor of Aerospace Engineering at Bristol University, a man known to me because we used to be flatmates as Elkie. So, Elkie, how are you doing?
Very well. Excited to make my debut. Some big shoes to fill, Bryce.
Might get a tweak in the hammy at some point, but
yeah.
Welcome to the pitch.
But I've always thought if you combine me and you together, you end up with Bryce anyway, so it's fine.
We've got to start off this wonderful film, Wolfgang Petersen directed, Das Boot, of course, about the Second World War U-96 submarine during the Battle of the Atlantic. I think the place we discussed starting is basically in this movie, they get stuck at the bottom of the Strait of Gibraltar for about 15 hours in one of at the sort of finale of the film, in one of the best scenes of the film. But I want to get your engineering background on this and ask you, basically, can that submarine survive at 280 meters as it does in the movie for 15 hours? That's the question. It's a very interesting question, which is why I asked it first. Please science us up.
There are records of the U-boats going that low. And it's quite an interesting engineering problem that once you get down that low, you've got all this water pressure around you. There's no obvious way for the submarine to fail. I don't know if you ever did this thing at school. You drink a Coke, you take a can, maybe not a proper one, like a Coke can. Drink
not your 8.3% beer.
No, like a Coke can, and you stand on it, like with nothing in it. You can actually stand on them, and if you give it the slightest little dent, it'll crush. So I think this U-boat, I think it would possibly be okay at 280. If it hadn't been absolutely battered with depth charges for the past 2 weeks, and then certainly the impact on the bottom, which in itself probably wouldn't destroy the craft, but with the pressure and the impact, it would have been all over.
Yeah, so basically, if it's intact, then it's more likely to survive at that depth. Because I did a little bit of research because I was very interested in this. I don't know, this is a great film for nerds. I'm a big submarine nerd. I'm delighted this is the first time we've got a submarine movie on the podcast. That's why I'm doing it with you, because Bryce is like not interested at all. But I love them. So basically, I did this, and I was looking through, and apparently German U-boats were constructed using a safety factor of 2.5, which means that they could theoretically endure 2.5 times what the label said it could. Yeah. The shipyard guarantee, and that's the translation, shipyard guarantee of a U-boat of this type was 90 meters. So if you do the math, 90 times 2.5 is 225.
They're not going to be super accurate, and they're probably going to be slightly on the conservative side. It's very dependent on minor flaws. If you got down there and survived, there's no reason why it wouldn't last for a while. If you got down there,
if you went down and it was okay, there's no reason why you wouldn't survive 15 hours.
Not really, no.
Theoretically.
Yeah, should be right.
Let's get on actually then to the book, because this book is the film is based on a book of the same name by Lothar Gunther Buchheim. But you've read it. I haven't read it. You've got it with you, haven't you?
Warning. I have read it, yeah. So it was from... My dad recommended it to me because he's a physicist as well, engineer type. And it's very, very technical, the book. I kind of came at it as like an engineering side. I want to know how submarines work. And then you get carried away with the people and the story.
It's interesting because I've read that the author, Buchheim, was quite pissed off with the way that the film turned out, the way that Wolfgang Petersen directed it. He said that the film made things too heroic and dramatic and actually sanitized it a bit. It would have been more horrific. You imagine, 50 odd people on this 65-meter vessel with one toilet, I hasten to add, one toilet, and I bet there's a supreme lack of bog roll as well. But he said they actually sanitized that, which is really interesting. And I'll come on later to the reaction this got in Germany when it came out, which was very different to the rest of the world, because it did very well in the rest of the world, and in Germany people were a lot more critical. But I'm asking, how does the book then differ? Is it more gritty? Is it more grimy? Is it than the film?
Observation 1, there's a lot more bawdy talk between the lads. There's a bit of it in the film.
Locker room banter.
It's mostly boasting about sexual exploits.
Okay, yeah.
In a sort of, the in-betweeners, the J characters was making stuff up. It's a bit of that.
Yeah.
It's exactly what 19-year-old lads would say. I mean, the 40s might have been a wild time, I don't know. But some of it's pretty out there, uncensored. At the risk of putting myself into its corner early doors, I know you and Bryce talk about the great man of history thing that some films do. This film doesn't. I think it does a really nice job with the captain of. He's dangerously good looking and he's the man, but he's not Superman. He makes errors and he gets scared and all this. I think sometimes you get the great machines of history as well. So things like the Spitfire, or maybe like the Panzer tank, the stealth bomber, things like this. They have a kind of near mythical status. I'd put the U-boat, and I mean, people don't say Type 7, but that's what they think of, the sort of World War II U-boat. Kind of has that as well.
Yeah.
It seems this incredible weapon that you can't stop and everything. And the book, a lot of it's technical, so you learn just how hard it is to pilot a submarine and all its flaws, and it breaks down, and you see that it's not this incredible wonder weapon. Well, it's an amazing bit of kit, but it's at the very limits of what you can do at the time. So it does break down. It's really slow underwater. It's really cramped.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you make about the engine. What do you say? The vehicles, the great engineering vehicles,
great machines of history.
Great machines, because the Spitfire, Battle of Britain's. I love that movie, but of course we know that the Hurricane, there were twice as many. It did basically all of the hard lifting, didn't it? The Hurricane rather than the Spitfire. The Panzer tank was forever breaking down.
Yeah,
it wasn't particularly effective, was it? And the U-boat, as we'll come on to the history in a minute, it's like got a sort of, there's a fear factor to it which probably outweighs its actual effectiveness. Because if you crunch the history of it, it wasn't at the beginning of the war. It was, but pretty rapidly it didn't really justify its. The ratio wasn't justified in terms of the resources Nazi Germany was spending on putting it out.
When you get these kind of wars that are fought exclusively with machines. So, an example I thought of is like, if you think about tank warfare, there's always stories of people popping out of a hedge and taking a pot shot with a bazooka or something, or these mad rushes and putting mines on the tracks. And there's lots of individual stories. There's nobody out there in a wetsuit taking pot shots at submarines. It's just like...
That's not a Rambo movie.
No, it's just there's destroyers, there's some planes and submarines. And in these situations, the technology makes such a difference. So you can go online and you can see there's graphs of either U-boat losses or shipping losses through the war. And there's sort of key inventions that come in and you can see the change. So the start of the war, it was called the Happy Days. I mean, it's not the best name, but a bit of an ironic.
On the German side, that is. Yeah.
And so they were just sending merchant ships on their own across the Atlantic. There's loads of ships, so they're relatively easy to find. And if you do find one, it's a turkey shoot. You're in a submarine, got a load of torpedoes, there's a nice big ship in front of you, job done. So the losses were astonishing early doors. And then they go to a convoy, and that's sort of where this film's set. So the idea with convoy is you have, 10, 20 ships together, which if you do find one, there's lots to aim at, but there will be some destroyers, some corvettes, other warships there, which even if they don't get you, they'll make you shoot from further away. They'll make you more cautious. They protect the ships. So that they go to convoys, immediately starts dropping off. And there's other things like radar comes in. They crack the Enigma code, that kind of thing. But then the radar's an interesting one because then the Germans develop a device that can detect the radars. So then they suddenly know where the convoys are. Then they come up with a new radar and they can't find it. So you get these real ebbs and flows. And by the end of the war, there was aircraft flying with radar across the whole Atlantic. And there were hunter-killer groups there's aircraft carriers with 5-6 destroyers going out just to find submarines. And that's where they were like, it's ridiculous, we're losing boats everywhere. So there's a real ebb and flow. And I think there's some nice, having watched this again, there's a couple of nice nods to it. So there's a bit where they see a destroyer through the periscope and then the destroyer comes and hunts them down. And the captain says, I don't know what the German translation is, but he says, "Oh, there's no way they should have seen us that far out with just a periscope." And he's got a genuinely puzzled look. And I think that's a reference to the fact that a lot of these cycles, if you look, they're like, if you go out on a mission that's a month, 6 weeks, you'd go out 6 weeks, come back, a couple of weeks on shore, repair the boat, retrain, etc., go back out. It could be a couple of months. The same tactics used last time may not work. Another nod to it is if you think about who's the baddie in this film.
Well, that's a good question.
Like from the perspective of the German crew, right? It's the destroyer, right?
Yeah, I thought you were being a bit deeper than that, but
no,
carry on.
But I am, because it's the boat, right? You never see the crew, do you, of the destroyer?
Yeah, that's right.
Like you could quite happily have. I think if this was an American film, for sure, there'd be 5 or 6 English chaps in the stoshes being like, "By Jove, there's a U-boat." You know, and you need little clips of the bridge and all that nonsense. With this, you just see the destroyer, but the destroyer doesn't really do any damage. It's the aircraft that get them. So they get once in Gibraltar, they get hit by the aircraft, and then right at the end, spoiler alert, the aircraft get them. And again, that's kind of a nod to like, well, actually, that's where it's going.
Yeah, it was the air cover, wasn't it? The increased air cover that really made it difficult for U-boats. I've got a whole thing on the technological race. It's fascinating. But they also mention ASDIC. I think someone mentions, don't they, that the which is the British word for the sonar system that they were developing. And I think one of the helmsmen mentions that it's like, it must be getting better and so on, And then you hear this, then they're pinged, aren't they, with the active sonar as well. So you've got all this new technology coming. And it's like it's a great... I think the Battle of the Atlantic, well, I suppose the whole Second World War, we can get kind of stuck and just focusing on the engineering side of things and forgetting the greater picture. But I mean, if you're an engineering nerd, surely you love the Battle of the Atlantic, because it's like each side is slowly climbing the ladder. Like, the Germans had these torpedoes that didn't leave awake anymore. They had this snorkel system so they could use the diesel engines at periscope depth. They changed their tactics, and of course the Allies had improved sonar and this hedgehog mortar where it fired a load of contact depth charges into the water, which really made it blah blah blah. We go on and on. We could actually devote a whole episode to that, but we're not going to.
No.
But it's one of those things that you can kind of get a bit stuck in, isn't it?
Yeah. Can I? I mean, do I? Yes. I watched this film. I read the book, and then I went to Portsmouth Historic Dockyards.
Good man.
And we go to the Gosport. Too right. We're both Hampshire represent. And Gosport Submarine Museum.
Yeah.
They've got an Alliance class, which is kind of the British version of the U-boat that came out just after the war. And I did the guided tour, and the guy's like, "I've got any questions?" And I was like, "Yes." I've just finished reading Das Boot, and his eyes lit up. Yeah. And I think we got basically kicked out at like closing time because I was asking too many questions.
We're closing the submarine.
And I find also, as an engineer, World War II stuff, most of it you can understand.
Yeah. It's not that far. The technology's not that far removed from like what you learn in school, is it?
No, like with I've got PhD and stuff, but with my engineering degree, I couldn't invent this stuff, but if someone gave me one and said, "How does it work?" I feel like I could more or less figure it out. Could I make it work? No, but I understand. So whereas a modern F-35 Lightning is incredible bit of kit, but most of it's electronics. I don't really get it or get excited by it.
I also went on the guided tour at Gosport Submarine Museum and talked to a submariner. We should try and get sponsored by them. Gosport Submarine Museum, if you're listening, please. And I asked the submariner, I said, "What's your favourite, or what's the best submarine movie?" And he said that this is the best submarine movie, Das Boot. But he said when he was serving when The Hunt for Red October came out, and he said they couldn't believe how accurate that film was. In fact, they thought that it had broken like, I don't know, security protocols or whatever, Official Secret Act. They couldn't believe how accurate The Hunt for Red October is. So he said, for the feeling of like the submarine warfare and just the best movie, it's this movie. But for accuracy, he said, it was The Hunt for Red October. That's what he said. I want to have a shout out to Crimson Tide, which is, I don't think the best. I think this is the best submarine movie, but my favorite submarine movie is Crimson Tide with Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. I've got a question for you, Elkie, on the back of what you said about Spitfires, Panzers, U-boats. Do you think there's an aesthetical aspect to it? Because, like the Spitfire had these beautiful kind of elliptical wings, and the Panzer, it looks like a real bastard of a tank, doesn't it? And the U-boat, there's something, I've got a model of, just really up the nerdery here. I've got a small model, which I'm holding up now, of a U-boat. And it kind of, there's a kind of sleek beauty to it, isn't it?
I think it's got shark vibes.
Ah, yes.
I think it triggers that thing in your brain. You see when you know that's evil.
Yeah.
That is not a floating hospital. It's all business.
Yeah, exactly. It's designed. Yeah, and exactly. They're black, and like there's some. Yeah, I don't know, something about it. Anyway, we should get on to the real history about this. Now, this movie starts with there's a title card, isn't there? It says that 40,000 people served in the Kriegsmarine and submarines, 30,000 died. Interestingly, I have a book here somewhere on the German Navy in World War II. I read in there that they used to purposefully pick kids from around where I live in Dortmund, in the Ruhr area, the industrial area, heartland of Germany, because they were more used to living in squalor. So they were more able to live on the horrifically cramped, claustrophobic conditions of a submarine. So they were actively, they tried to get people from that kind of background. We're looking at the Battle of the Atlantic here, of course, in the Second World War. Approximately 1,167 U-boats were built, 785 sunk or destroyed, and U-boats sunk over 3,000 Allied ships, of which 52 were destroyers. The Battle of the Atlantic, of course, was the longest continuous campaign of World War II, and it was a struggle over supply lines between North America and Britain. Of course, Britain was dependent on food and fuel and weapons from the US to survive. And so German U-boats tried to cut these lifelines by sinking merchant ships faster than they could be replaced. Early in the war, they were highly effective. But over time, the Allies adapted, as we've discussed. By mid-1943, the balance had shifted decisively, which interests me because this movie, I think, is in 42, isn't it? It's a bit early.
It's late 41.
But by 43, the writings on the wall and U-boat losses became so heavy that Germany could no longer sustain the campaign. And that's the point at which it kind of, completely falls apart anyway for Germany.
Yeah, so it as I say, it goes back and forth so much. But by the end, because they had good radar and they had aircraft patrolling the whole Atlantic, and they had aircraft carriers, which made the main difference. So as we see from this film, I mean, I was looking at the stats. So I think the U-boat on the surface can do like 18 knots. Yeah. Underwater, not a lot, 9 or something. Meanwhile, the planes are doing 300 miles an hour. So you've got a Formula One car chasing a milk float.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why.
I think it's the speed because I think U-boats this type of U-boat takes about 40 seconds, which is really impressive actually, but for about 40 seconds to become submerged. But we should explain that these U-boats were, they're called U-boats, Unterseeboot, like underwater boat for a reason, because they spent most of the time on the surface. Yeah. And you've literally got like lookouts with binoculars looking for enemy shipping. And it's only when they spot something that you then dive. Then you have to run on the electric batteries, which were pretty crap by modern standards in the 30s and 40s. So you could only be undersea for a very limited amount of time. And then, of course, you've got things like CO2 buildup because you can't get rid of the air people are breathing. If the batteries get wet, I think there's like chlorine coming off and everything. Yeah. It's absolutely horrific. But that's the kind of limitation of the technology with U-boats. It's now, since the Nautilus, the first nuclear submarine, they could stay underwater indefinitely. Most submarines are underwater all the time. But these submarines, most of the time, they're on the surface.
Yeah. And with a nuclear-powered submarine, you have almost unlimited power. So you've got air conditioning, you've got fridges, you've got a cinema, you've got a gym. You can run all this stuff. So they're actually, you're still underwater in a box. Like, credit to any Submariners, but it's relatively nice compared to this.
Well, yeah, just to up the levels of nerdery, I've got this model. Sorry, people listening on the podcast platforms, because you won't have a clue what I'm about to talk about, but I've got this model of U-96, which is about the length of my finger. And then, viewers, I've got this model of a Typhoon class submarine. These are to scale, which is the submarine from The Hunt for Red October, which is a Russian submarine, which is actually two submarine hulls put together and then with another hull over the side. But this submarine, Elke, this Russian submarine, so huge was it that they had a swimming pool in it because they had so much space. What the hell? What is the mind when you're swimming in a submarine underwater? Isn't that bizarre? Anyway, so the point is that, as you said, they have unlimited power. So they had like an aviary, they have like a gym. There's so much space on this submarine, which is why I have a model, because it's also film history. But that's the development you get from 1939 to 1980 odd, when the Typhoon came out. How rapidly
it's not long, is it?
Advanced.
It's not long.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is absolutely incredible with nuclear power.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, they were so slow. And part of the reason planes are so dangerous is that if you're a destroyer, which are about the same speed as a surface U-boat, give or take,
yeah,
and you might be, I don't know the maths, but you might be half a mile away when you see a U-boat, it takes you quite a long time to get there. Whereas at 200, 300 miles an hour in a plane, half a mile is nothing. So the aircraft could get there before the thing's gone down, and you can attack it while it's still on the surface. And the hulls of these ships are, I think it was 15 millimeters, which sounds like a lot of steel, but it'll probably deal with machine gun fire, but that's tinfoil as far as ship armor goes.
Yeah.
So they were so vulnerable to any attack. Another advantage is if you're in a boat and you take machine gun fire and you get holes in the boat, unless the hole is below the water, you're okay.
Yeah.
Whereas in a submarine, if there's any hole, it's going to leak. And if you have to stay on the surface, then it's game over. So it's it was a bleak time. I mean, hats off to anyone who signed up to those bits of the war. We'll talk about another one later in the companion film, where the casualty rates were that high. Like it's wild.
It's a wonder anyone seriously managed to live. I mean, it's just absolute squalor, basically. I think that's what you actually don't get. You get the claustrophobia, this movie. Let's go back to the movie. In this movie, it does a great job, of course. Wolfgang Petersen does a great job of filming within the confines. I think there's literally only one scene where they didn't film within the confines of what a submarine would have been. So they used sets that were based on the size of real submarines. You get a really good sense of claustrophobia. But it's probably, you don't get a sense of the squalor. It must have been absolutely horrific. It must, like, people not able to wash one toilet, Elke. I keep going back. One toilet.
I feel like they do quite a good job, actually. I think when you watch it, you want to have a shower afterwards so badly. Because I actually rented this film from 20th Century Flicks in Bristol.
Oh, that's like an old video rental.
Claims to be the oldest video rental shop in the world. Shout out to them. That's
almost certainly bullshit, though, isn't it?
I mean, they're still running, and none of the other ones are. And so we used to rent James Bond films there during our Christmas dinners.
So did you rent it recently? It's still going.
No. This is years ago. It's still going. Yeah, still on their Christmas steps in Bristol.
Oh, fair.
They've got a little cinema, new screens, whatever. And again, I went in and said, "Have you got Das Boot?" And they was like, "Of course we've got Das Boot." And she said, "I'll only lend it to you if you promise me. It's a director's cut, mind. You'll watch it in the dark, front to back, no breaks." Okay. Because that's how you have to enjoy it. I think I may have caved and gone to the toilet halfway through, but that's what you have to do.
Yeah. And
my now wife at the time, I think we hadn't been together for that long, and I don't really watch that many films. And I was like, "Oh, Shannon, I've got a film. It's 4 hours long and it's set on a submarine." She said yes, and she really enjoyed it. So
he must love you. Yeah, she enjoyed it. Good. Yeah, we'd all. Yeah. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but these are generally male films, aren't they? So which episode did you watch? We should come back to the point that there's so many different versions of this movie. There's the original theatrical cut, 2 hours, 29 minutes. The director's cut, 3 hours, 20 minutes. That's what I saw. There's a Blu-ray director's cut, which is 8 minutes longer than that. There's a TV film, which is 4 hours, 42 minutes, and a TV series, which is 5 hours and 9 minutes.
So I've watched the director's cut and the TV series.
A good man.
I mean, that answers the question of is it too long, is it too short? Clearly, they couldn't decide.
Yeah. Well, apparently, I've read in the TV series they go into a lot more of the like subplots. There's one subplot that like the chief of the boat or whatever, his wife is very sick. You're probably getting confused between versions, but in the director's cut version, there's a little bit of background that his wife's very sick and he's hoping to go and visit, I think, or dying.
Yeah.
He's hoping to go and visit her and he can't, basically. And it's like another morale kick. Well, I've read that in the longer versions, there's more of those, basically.
Yeah, I mean, well, frankly, in the book, people have names.
Yeah.
In the film, no one really has a name.
Yeah. Well, the film's not really based on. I mean, there's the author Lothar Gunther Buchheim really was on U-96 as a naval war correspondent for 6 to 7 weeks from October to December 1941. But as I understand it, his character is pretty much real. And the captain, or Der Alte, his character, is closely inspired by the real commander of U-96, Heinrich Lehmann Willenbrock. And but apart from the others, they're just amalgamations of characters in the books, and there's no.
Yeah. So there's only really in the film, there's probably only 5 or 6 characters.
Yeah.
Really, other people are just faces that do stuff. In the book, there's a lot more. And I must admit, during the book, I did get a bit confused as to who I was talking to, but.
I think it does a great job, definitely, of claustrophobia. I think that's why it's the Submariner's choice, Elkie. That's what we're saying. It's the Submariner's film. Yeah. And I think that's why, because the atmosphere of it is so sort of oppressive. They probably think back to their Submariner days and think, yeah, it was that shit. So, yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing we should mention that I looked up about the history before we move on is what interested me about running the Strait of Gibraltar, which is this, very traumatic scene, that 62 German U-boats attempted to enter the Mediterranean, of which 9 were sunk, 10 turned back, and the rest got through. But no U-boat ever returned from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. They were all sunk or scuttled. So it's another point in this movie. They do get back, don't they? Yes, they do get back. So another inaccuracy there.
No, because they don't go through.
Oh, then they get through. They turn around. Do they? I can't remember the end of the film. Okay, so they turn, but they don't actually get. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah, they turn back and they go to La Rochelle.
Yes, of course, and they get bombed, which actually is a bit early. Obviously, this movie, in terms of historical accuracy, it's like compressing an awful lot of events into the film, into make the film, but it's a bit early for them to have such a aggressive air raid on mainland France. That's happening like a bit later, 44, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it is on the coast, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
they had that is post the height of the Battle of Britain, because that was the summer of 41. But yeah, it was. It's probably a bit ambitious to fly all the way down to La Rochelle at that time.
They didn't have the Allies didn't have that wonderful phrase that military buffs get a boner over aerial supremacy at that point, did they? So I think so. No. Okay, so one thing I've got to mention is the reception to this movie in Germany. Well, because it has a budget of about 14. I've done it in dollars, about $14 million at the box office. It makes $85 million. It's nominated for 6 Oscars. This movie does great. It kind of goes like gangbusters around the world. But in Germany, and I've asked around a few people here what they think of it, and the older generation have serious problems with this movie because one way that someone put it to me was that basically the Germans that like the Nazis and the Germans that are just there, having to go along with it are like two separate entities that they've separated out, and there's way too much of this kind of stuff of there's one guy basically. There's one guy in this movie who's like an ardent National Socialist, like a proper been through the ranks of the Hitler Youth, like a full blower, and everyone else is tired and they're all like, "Here, we have to do this," blah blah blah. Which, depending on who or what age different, young people I've spoken to, my colleagues at work and stuff, don't really get that. Not really, they think that's okay. Older generation, I've talked to a few people and they're like really quite pissed off with this movie, and a lot of people in Germany find that the representation is completely ridiculous. To say that most Germans were basically, this movie kind of gives you the impression most Germans were against Nazism, which obviously is up for debate, all of that. But They're saying it's way too, especially for this point in the war, it's way too
one of my
anti-Nazi, which is an interesting point.
One of my favourite scenes, not the favourite scene, we'll talk about later, is when they're on the supply ship. And they dock in Vigo, and they dock with a German ship that's in neutral Spain, and they resupply, and they have a feast and stuff.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And those guys on the ship are all a bit overweight and pompous and Heil Hitler and all that.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
They're all, like, you hate them. They're cartoon baddies.
Yeah.
And then you see what, at this point, feel like your friends, the U-boat crew there, who are just, if they don't ever salute or anything, they just mill about and have a bit of food and leave.
There is an aspect of, to watch my words here, it's not because I want to say anything bad, but I want to say it correctly, but there's an aspect of the older generation in Germany that just cannot stomach really any aspect of humanizing that period of history, which I can totally understand, by the way. It's a very good argument, because of we know the horrific crimes that regime carried out. So, but I just wanted to say that to our listeners and our viewers, that there is a bit of a backlash against this movie in some parts of Germany, which is kind of to be expected, isn't it?
Well, there's a great quote I found from I can't really write, but Roger Ebert.
The Ebert's my favourite film critic of all time. He wrote for the Chicago Tribune, I think.
Great. So he says, "We identify not with the mission, but with the job."
Mm-hmm.
Which I quite like. There's none.
Elkie, the genius. I keep in every episode. I pretty much always quote him. And
I thought the name came up.
His eyes, but he always pretty much always gets it right. I
was rummaging around for Sude's Corner, and I was like, "No, this is actually really good." But there's one thing I like about this film is there's nothing special about this mission. Mm-hmm. Obviously, people die, which is terrible, but there's no hype. Yeah. Like, we're out trying to find a ship that's got Winston Churchill or anything silly like that. It's just we're going to go out and cause some havoc and come back. Yeah. And no one ever. I think on the boat you never hear them say anything. I think there's the sort of token Heil Hitlers and stuff when he meets the crew for the first time in the U-boat pen, and there's all the pomp and ceremony and things, and it's all going on. But then on the boat, it never happens. It's just we had to do a job.
That's a very good point, actually. It's probably why I enjoy this film so much, because it's, they're not like they have to find the Enigma machine or something, or they have to, I don't know what it would be. Mind you, the question is, what would it be? But, they're not on like a secret mission to, every commando movie, they're always on Heroes of the Telemark, they have to stop Nazi Germany getting the nuclear bomb.
They'd be trying to find a specific boat.
Yeah.
That's what they'd be trying to do.
Yeah. Right, let's move on, shall we, to our list of questions? Unless there's anything else you want to... Yeah?
No. Everything else is part of the question, so we'll go from there.
So, our wonderful round of inane trivia.
How about that?
The submarine models were also used in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, classic.
Nominated for 6 Academy Awards, which at the time was the highest number of Oscar nominations ever received by a foreign language film. That's quite interesting as well. So I've basically ruined that segment. So, Elkie, too long, too short. I suppose, as you said, they couldn't make their mind up.
Never long enough.
Where's the extended special director's edition that's like includes all of the rushes? Just everything in there. It's like 40 hours long or something.
Verbatim script from the book.
Yeah. Just with AI prompter, you can make the whole movie.
It's a great credit to the film that you don't. It's on paper. It's a 4-hour film about some Nazis trying to sink boats supplying our grandparents. Yet somehow it absolutely gripped.
Yeah, and
you really feel for the characters.
This is one of those movies that maybe it's because you mentioned the point there that there's no clearly defined special goal. It's just a movie that goes in, and I mean this in a very good way. It goes on and on and on and on, and I want it to keep going on. They're on to the next problem and the next problem, and now they're getting depth charged, and now they have to refuel and like this. I could just watch it forever, And of course, you can look up all of the actual patrols of because they have all the records.
Yeah.
Of the real U-96. Oh, I forgot to mention that. which it went on 11 combat patrols in the Atlantic, sank 27 ships, including 3 British troop ships, killed more than 1,000 people, and survived multiple depth charge encounters, and was actually from 1943 used only as a training submarine, and it was sunk in port in 1945 during Allied bombing. So that's correct, but much later in the war. So thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot to do that myself.
It is, I mean, you know, that is an astonishing career for a boat, isn't it?
Yeah.
But aside from the, you know, whose side you're on, whatever, like as a piece of military hardware, that is astonishing.
Too old, too young. Well, the real Heinrich Lehmann. I should mention actually to our German listeners, I apologize for pronouncing stuff wrong. The movie's called, in German, it's Das Boot. It's not even it's not the boot. It's the boat. Anyway, Heinrich Lehmann Willenbrock was 29. That's the main character, and Jürgen Prochnow was 40 when he did it. And average age of U-boat crews were about between 20 and 22 years old, and the average age of the top 10 listed cast about 29.
So I've got a direct quote from the book here. I pulled out on this. It says, back at base, when they come in clean shaven, I feel as if I've taken a kindergarten to sea. Thank God the newsreel cameramen concentrate only on the incoming boats with bearded crews, if only to spare the enemy's feelings. The British should be ashamed to see who's giving them hell. Nursery school toddlers, officers by a few bright lads from the Hitler Youth. It's the Children's Brigade all over again.
Wow. Yeah,
because the captain who's Das Alten, or the old man in the English version, so he's referred to him as the old man, but he's 29, which kind of sounds ridiculous. But this is Patrick Vieira playing with the youth team.
Fantastic analogy.
You know,
with that big lump of Vaseline on his chest.
Yeah, he seems young to us, but you know, he's the man. I think I looked him up. He'd been at sea since the early 30s, 33, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Not in U-boats, but in all kinds of ships and things. And you know, he knows the tactics. So yeah, it's a crazy thing. You think of someone as 29 as being quite young, but actually they're very experienced. And
it's unbelievable, isn't it?
Also, judging by the casualty rates, not many people made it to 29.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So everyone's about 10 years too old.
We mentioned Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm thinking of The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, when Sean Connery he's Harrison Ford's dad. He's only 11 years older than him, and it's probably doable just biologically. Anyway, so moving on, is Jürgen Prochnow your favorite? The Alter, the old man, the leader of the U-boat.
Favorite character?
Is he your favorite character?
Yeah, he has to be, doesn't he?
I think he's basically the only. Well, I suppose him and the kind of goggle-eyed pale lad whose name I forget in the engine room, who has
he's just called the chief.
He's called the chief. He has a wobble, quite understandably.
Didn't the actor actually have a breakdown? I read something
making
about
the movie.
Like he was really struggling. Like he looks. There's method acting and then there's this. It's different.
Yeah, it's effective. Don't want to laugh at him.
Yeah, no, I think he's the captain's the main guy. That captain for me, that's what James Bond should be.
Oh, great shout!
Dangerously good looking.
The German Bond, Elkie. Can you imagine it? We've had the Scottish Bond, the Irish Bond, the Welsh Bond, English Bonds, and now the German Bond.
Just that, you know, he's good at what he does, but he's dangerously good looking, but he's flawed. There's some, yeah, exactly, but there's also a kind of steely determination or wisdom or something in his performance, Jürgen Prochnow. It does wonderful in this movie because it basically hangs on whether you believe him, you know, as a character, and he's just brilliant in this movie. Really good. And you can see how the younger lads would follow him. Yeah, absolutely. Another character I like is Captain Thompson, who's the pisshead at the beginning, who's like basically massively anti-Hitler. And I think they come across him, don't they? Like, and his U-boat's in trouble or something later on, I forget. Yeah, they bump into him in the sea. An absolute piss artist, basically, at the beginning of this movie, which I quite enjoy his character. Favourite scene, Elkie? What's your favourite scene? My favourite scene is it's not actually a scene per se. It's more of a sequence. So it happens early on in the film, and it's when they've gone out to sea, and the sort of novelty of being at sea, and they've done a few drills and things, and nothing happens for quite an extended period. I think it's 5 to 10 minutes, and it's just them passing time in the boat.
Yeah.
And I found a quote from Neil Jeffries, is someone that comes up on the podcast.
Not heard of him before. I don't know. Yeah.
He says, "Rarely has boredom been betrayed so rivetingly."
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's just, I found it just addictive viewing, just watching, they're sort of eating boring food and they're passing the time in the boat. But you can tell they're all quite nervous because they know what's coming up. And I think it's just this fantastically, it just drags you in because you just think, oh, these are real people. This isn't some Hollywood, as you say, silly mission or something. It's just, oh, these are real people on a boat and everyone kind of knows what's going to happen or might happen.
There's something about the way this movie looks, I think, that drags you in. And the performances as well. But I think it's to do with them filming in those really claustrophobic conditions. You can kind of sense that through the screen somehow. That the actors are all cramped in and they probably had a miserable time making it. And there's something about that makes it so kind of genuine that you think, yeah, I'm 100% in this movie. I think it's the way it's shot.
Yeah, and talk about other submarine films. Anytime I see any footage from a submarine that isn't Das Boot, I'm like, what is this studio nonsense?
Yeah,
it's a bunch of actors in a studio. I don't believe it.
Yeah, because it always looks a bit too clean, and then they have like the lighting. And I think a great example is if you look at the behind the scenes of Crimson Tide, they have this like ridiculous set that kind of wobbles left and right, and all this different lighting. I love that movie mainly because of the performances of the actors, though. In this movie, it's much more kind of the claustrophobia. I've got to say, it's favorite scenes. I could go on about how the scenes you've mentioned. I love the bit where he's just on he's trying to get out of trouble in Gibraltar, and he's just on top of the sail, I think they call it, don't they? Where at the top of the submarine, he's just going schneller, like faster. Yeah. I love that scene. But there's one scene in this movie, which I've seen a couple of times this film now, which always sticks in my mind. Do you know what scene it is? Can you think of what it could be? I tell you, it's
give us a hint.
Guy's arse cheeks when he's running out of the toilet. I think it's the first time they die.
Yes.
And I never forget the arse cheeks. I don't. There we go. That's it. So maybe I have to say that's technically my favourite scene.
I thought you were talking about the arse cheeks when they were all getting treated with crabs.
I haven't. I think Matt's in a different version than the version I've seen. In the director's cut, there basically is the guy running with his trousers down his ankles, trying to pull his trousers up because they've just had alarm. We've got to dive,
yeah.
And that's the scene that every time. The first time I watched this movie, which was about 20 years ago, that's the only scene I could remember when I watched it. Like 15 years later. Anyway, so moving swiftly on.
There's another scene where one of the officers one of them notices he's got like a crab in his eyebrow.
Yeah.
This says, go back to the back and see the medic. And he walks into the torpedo room where all the lads are. And there's just like 8 blokes with their trousers down, all getting treated in a line.
Oh, God.
Just to add to the
that's interesting because I haven't seen that scene. So yeah. I was saying about we don't see that it's not gritty enough, but maybe I just haven't seen I've got to sit through the 5-hour version.
We've got to give a shout out to the homoeroticism of it.
I thought we were going to say the crabs then. Great acting.
No.
Okay, what would have Brian Clough have made of this movie? What a question.
Well, I was researching Brian Clough, and
don't tell me he served on the Kriegsmarine in World War II.
No, he was chairman of the Anti-Nazi League. Anti-Nazi something.
Good man. What a legend, yeah.
I think he would have loved it. Because basically you watch a load of Nazis have a really terrible time and then get shot up by the RAF at the end. I think what he'd like about it is the fact that the way in some ways it probably reminds him a lot of a football dressing room. You've got the officers, the manager, chairman, etc., and you've got the team, which are the lads at the front, it's quite chaotic.
Yeah.
And there's lots of banter flying around and they're messing around and stealing each other's photos and doing silly things. But then when somebody shouts alarm,
I'm absolutely loving this analogy. Yeah.
But when somebody shouts alarm,
they're on it.
They're on it.
And they're probably like a load of misbehaving teenagers.
And you've got but then when the alarm bells, they're not. They're the soldiers. And also you've got this sort of this battle with the destroyer trying to outwit it and move it around. The captain's in charge of people taking. So I think he'd love it. I think he'd watch it and go, "I want to be the captain. I like this, lads."
Things would be a little bit different on my U-boat. So who should do the DVD commentary? Probably the lad that wrote the book, I should imagine. Would like to have heard from him. Or the real someone from the real submarine.
That's this.
Okay. You have to read it pretty quick though.
The DVD commentary is just reading the book. I think it would be great to have a captain. Obviously that's the obvious answer.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. I think it would be good to hear kind of maybe from one of the younger lads.
Yeah.
How he saw it all going down. But I think the film does such a good job, and its scope is so narrow. Like as I say earlier, you don't see. There's no flashbacks to their home lives. There's no.
Yeah, thank God.
Here's the crew of the destroyer. Here's the command and nothing. You just see the men in the boat. So the DVD commentary would have to really be. I think it would be like the broader picture.
Yeah, well, that brings me neatly on to the next question, which is companion film, because they've made a TV series, a German TV series, which I haven't seen, but talking from people that have, they do have, because I think they've made 3 or 4 series. There's a few dozen episodes, and I'm just not interested in that.
I've heard it's very good.
It's the sequel. Die Festung, the fortress, the sequel to Das Boot, which is set during the late war, apparently. Well, I haven't seen the series, but apparently there's a lot of flashbacks to people's life before. And I don't want to sound too autistic, but I don't give a about these flashbacks. I want to see a load of lads in the submarine. Really, in these kind of movies, I don't want to see flashbacks. It takes me out of the cramped conditions and the reason why I'm stuck into it in the first place. So yeah.
Can I go back to favourite scene quickly?
Please. Anytime.
My least favourite scene is, so when you're in the boat, as you said, you've got these actors that are really putting themselves through it. You've got these amazing filming techniques, this fantastic set. It's hyper realistic. And then every shot that's on the conning tower, top of the machine, turns into sort of carry-on submarining. So there's like a single, so I don't know if you pick this up as an editor, filmer. Every shot on the conning tower, there's a single camera that doesn't move. The framing's a bit weird.
Yeah, and you can tell it's a set. Yeah.
Suddenly all the acting, even the way they sort of lift binoculars up, it all seems to suddenly go all wooden. And you can imagine there's the work experience lads just off the side shouting "duck" and chucking a bucket of water over them. And I wonder
if that's something, that's a good point actually. I wonder if it's something to do with the fact that, and I haven't looked this up, so I don't know. I don't know if they use a different camera or a different film or something, because you can always see that in like Only Fools and Horses. You can see the difference between the stuff that's shot in the studio because they use different cameras when they shoot stuff on location outside, and you can see it. I don't know whether that's something or it's the lighting or whatever it is, but it kind of looks kind of fakey. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
I found it kept bursting the bubble.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
It's the only thing that's stopping them. Later on, we score it. That's stopping this film having an astronomical score. Is it just little? And it's an old film. It's 1981.
Yeah,
but it's not that old. Another film, the scene I'd give a shout out to, because this is 1981. So this is way before you Saving Private Ryan's and all that kind of stuff. I think the aerial attack at the end is a really effective military assault. It's quite haunting the way people get hurt and they're screaming, and it's all quite sinister and real. And if I think of military stuff from the 80s, I think of like the A-Team and Rambo and stuff like that. I don't know who else is really doing it to that effectiveness.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that period, World War II movies of the 80s. I'm trying to think on my feet about that. World War II, I suppose, is a bit tricky. I think it kind of went out of fashion a bit in the 80s. World War II, unless I've missed something obvious. Listeners or viewers can remind me in the comments.
That realm where if you watch, the Saving Private Ryan is the obvious one. It's a difficult watch.
Yeah.
And that final scene there's a bit too much fire and explosions, whatever. But the way people die, and it's people that are getting mown down, and it's all quite. I think it's done really well, and I think it's kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
yeah,
and imagine if you hadn't read the book, I think that would be a really like I knew it was coming. If you haven't read the book, I think it would be really effective. I know my wife watched; she was quite shocked by it because you've kind of emotionally like, oh, okay, they've got back.
Yeah,
all my friends are safe now, and then sorry.
Yeah, the ignominy of their final defeat, I think, is a great showing the futility of war. But it's great that they don't go out in a blaze of glory, or they don't really achieve anything, do they? They don't.
Well, they
don't really sink anything.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, but I mean, but there's no like clear goal. They spend most of the movie being frustrated with the whole thing, which I think is great.
I believe that is mostly what war is about.
Well, that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. Elkie, before we hit Sude's Corner, what I've prepared, I don't know whether you fancy. I've prepared some German words that you might see in a German submarine. Would you like to see that?
Yeah,
and I'm wondering. Here we go. So here's the first one. That's the easy one. Sorry again, people listening. I'm so sorry. You'd have to check the YouTube video, but it's not going to work. But
can you butcher it?
Can you see that word?
Yeah. So that's so it's diesel. So it's like diesel, and you got machine on the end. Diesel Lantra's machine is like a fuel pump.
It's the diesel propulsion engine. It's
diesel. The diesel engine itself.
Diesel Antriebsmaschine. That's the easy one. Here's the next one. Look at the state of this, ladies and gentlemen. The length of these words is ridiculous.
Oh, that rings a bell. I have got a GCSE German. I've got a B.
Good man.
That wasn't covered in the. I don't think I've got one of those in my pencil case, so I wouldn't know what it was.
Well, when I learned German, there was unfortunately no unit on the submarine. There's like at the doctors and in the supermarket with all these like useful phrases. There wasn't one for on the U-boat, unfortunately. So we're going to have to sit with Besatzungs Unterkunftsraum is apparently the crew living quarters. And the last one, which takes the piss.
Round.
This
should have given it away. Right.
There we go.
And underwater ride.
Very good.
Gesuschwin Getrakt. Sorry, apologies to all of Germany.
You're halfway there. Unterwasserfahrtgeschwindigkeit.
Is that the electric motor for driving underwater?
No,
is that the Oh, there you go. I was going to say
speed whilst submerged. Very good. Okay, do you know my favorite German word? They love a compound. Compound words is Eisenbahnscheinbewegung, which is that that feeling when you are sitting on a train at a station which is stationary, and then you look out the window and there's a train moving, and then you think for a second you're moving.
Yeah,
that's what that word means in German. There's one word for it.
Love it.
No, nothing but efficient. So, Sude's Corner, Elkie, have you got something for us for Sude's Corner?
I actually don't. I tried long and hard, and every review was. I think it's such a straightforward film, an honest film, that I think people struggle to attach things to it. Other than, I've put myself in talking about the great machines of history, but I honestly couldn't find anything.
No, nor did I.
The internet for silliness and everything was just very glowing about this amazing film.
Unsurprisingly, though, for an engineering-heavy movie, I did find some pedants online. How about you?
I found a football-based pedant.
Me too. Does it involve Schalke?
Yeah.
Oh, please, go ahead. I've got the whole quote here. It's really long.
At some point in the film, they get a radio message, and part of it is that their team, Schalke, I think they're all from the same area, lost 5-0 and are out of the running. But this film is set in December 1941, at which point in the German season there was no knockout tournaments and it's too early to be out of the league. So it ruined the film for me, burst the bubble.
Yeah, Schalke is the team from Gelsenkirchen, which is just around the corner from here, which is in the rural area. So that's, again, they're bringing people, which is very accurate because they're bringing a lot of kids basically in from the industrial heartland. Yes, I've basically got that in long form. I'm not going to read it through, but Schalke, basically that it's not possible that result. And someone has done the research because they've looked through not only the national championship, the league system, or every championship it could possibly be, and that is a statistical error. So there we go. I've also got a good one here. The Enigma machine shown is a 4-rotor M4 type. Don't know if you picked up on this, Alki.
Yep.
The film is set in the autumn of 1941. The 4-rotor type was not introduced until the 1st of February 1942. Prior to that, 3-rotor M3 types were used. It is known, however, the M4 machines were distributed well before the 1st of February 1942, as otherwise it would have been impossible to switch over to the new machine on that date. Until the 1st of February 1942, M4 machines that had already been distributed were used in M3 compatible mode, which means that the leftmost rotor had to be set to A. I don't know what that means, but I think basically they're saying that the Enigma machine is anachronistic.
No, so with the Enigma machine, science of that, you have essentially the signal you have, so your text you're sending, gets sent through 4 filters.
Yeah.
Each of which rotate every time you move, so that's why it's so difficult to encrypt. But basically it's, think of a combination lock on a bicycle.
Yeah.
The 3-rotor one is one with 3 numbers. So my code might be 1, 2, 3. It actually doesn't take actually that long to search through all of the combinations.
Yeah.
Just 999 combinations, but you can kind of do it. If you put the 4th rotor on, the number of combinations goes up massively. So the 3-rotor machine, they were solving mathematically at Bletchley Park.
Yeah.
And they pretty much cracked it, but it was hit and miss whether they cracked it for that day. They try it, but then the 4-rotor machine was one that you just couldn't do, and literally it was very difficult. And that's where Alan Turing and the machine and all that, and the computer and that kind of stuff comes in.
Yeah.
But again, a classic example of like they had the 3-rotor machine, and the British had no idea. We kind of cracked the 3-rotor machine, and suddenly we started knowing where the U-boat patrols were.
Yeah.
So you come down, and then the Germans put the 4-rotor in. Suddenly we're like, oh, I've got no idea. Again, U-boat losses go down, Allied shipping losses go up. Then we crack the Enigma code, and then it goes back the other way. Classic sort of war to and fro.
Thank you for clearing that up, because I didn't know what the hell that was talking about. But I suppose basically you've got a 10-fold increase if you think of it like it just for a bicycle lock. And so it's 10 times more options from 3 to 4, right? Is that right? Yeah. So it's going to make it a lot more difficult. That's why you're on the podcast, Elkie.
That's what I'm here for.
Don't celebrate. You know that wonderful quote by Mario Balotelli when they asked him, "Why don't you celebrate?" He says, "Does a postman celebrate every time he posts a letter? I'm doing my job." So, on that beautiful quote, marks out of 10. Elkie, sum up.
Well, I've got some more scientific beef for this film.
Oh, please, sorry. Yeah, I do apologise.
The depth charges.
Yep.
So in the film, there's a few outside shots of the submarine underwater, and the depth charges go off right next to it, or near to it. If they were one off that near, game over. These things are actually really effective, so more science. In air, shockwaves travel, but not that well. So if a big bomb went off 50 meters away from you, if you didn't get hit by shrapnel, you'd probably get deafened, but you might be all right. In water, think of like an earthquake tsunami wave. You know, you can have an earthquake and the tsunami wave hits like hundreds of miles away. These things were effective. Small ones, 50 meters, big ones, 100 meters.
Yeah.
So if you think about, you know, you're in a destroyer and you see a U-boat go down, but it's in the sea, there's waves, there's wind, there's mist, whatever. It's very difficult to actually really hit them.
Yeah.
So they're big things. They're 100, 200 kilo gunpowder barrels. They're just brute force. So yeah, if they'd gone off anywhere near what they do in the film, the boat would be totaled straight away.
Yeah. It's interesting how much range they have.
Yeah, it's a long way.
Yeah. Because if you're thinking the submarine can only go down, well, in this movie, 280 meters, but even less. So what did you think of Das? I'm thinking it's going to be quite high.
Yes, I mean, my film knowledge is pretty poor, but I think this is top notch.
Yeah.
If the conning tower scenes were better,
yeah,
I would put this as one of the greatest films of all time. Because I think it, as you say, does something. in the boat, those submarines, the way it's filmed, the way it looks, the way the characters are, it does something that's over and above a lot of other films. You watch this film and you think, yeah, that was really good. And you watch another film, you're like, what is this studio nonsense? So I'm going to go 9.
9 out of 10. Yeah.
Professional critic, I am not.
No, I'm going to, I don't know why I've given it, I think it is the best. It is the best submarine movie. It's not my favorite submarine movie. Therefore, I'm not saying that Crimson Tide is better than this movie. It's just that I prefer it. I've given it an 8.5. Just because. Come on, I give it a 9. I think it's a great movie. I think it's really good. I think there are some points that people bring up about the fact that, come on, are we really thinking that Nazi? So many people within the Nazi German war machine were kind of, hard done by or against the war. I don't know. That's a subject up for debate. But the effectiveness of this movie, as I said, you just want to keep watching it. I'm happy for it to keep going on and on and on. It's not a lot of movies like that.
I don't think there's much anti-war sentiment in it, as in from the people.
Oh, there's sort of looks and glances, and everyone is like,
they're not Heil Hitlering and stuff, and they're not running away. Like they want to go out and try and find a boat to sink.
Yeah,
as I say, is it the Roger quote? Like they want to do the job, and they celebrate when they hit the ship and take people down. So I don't think there's any real dissent to the mission, but there's no pro Nazi stuff on the boat for sure. But I think it's anti-mission. It's just lads doing a job.
Brilliant. Yes. Well, we'll both give it a 9. Good. I mean, the best submarine movie of all time. We've answered that question. We've gone through the history. We've gone through some great trivia. We thought about what Brian Clough would think of it. Thank you very much, Elke, for joining me in this episode of the Historical Movies podcast. We get you back for some more machine versus machine movies.
Yes. We haven't done companion film.
Didn't we do the companion? I thought we did the companion film. Our TV series.
Oh,
you've got one?
Yes.
Oh, please go ahead.
It's not actually
I'm all over the shop. I do apologise. Go on.
It's all right. It's a book.
Is it Das Boot?
No. Okay. It's a fantastic read, page turner. No, it's there's an author called Len Dayton, fantastic war writer. And he's written...
He also, sorry, just to jump in, Ipcris Files and so on. He died recently.
Yes.
I think last year he died.
Oh, no way. He was... So he's a bunch of fantastic non-fiction books which are really all about the technological story of various things. But his first novel, Bomber, unlikely to be made into a film because it's about the RAF raids flattening German towns, which certainly in the UK is somewhat swept under the carpet.
Yeah, I think
they recently kind of reluctantly put a fairly low-key memorial in London, but before that it was kind of kept on the low-key. I don't think they'd ever really celebrate it, but it's very similar to this book in that it's on the Allied side, the good guys, inverted commas, but it's a mission that you don't really care for. I don't want merchant ships to be sunk. I don't want German towns to get flattened. But it follows a crew on a bomber mission. And why they're really interesting is because the casualty rates are pretty similar. Bomber command is incredibly dangerous, and it's similar to the U-boat system, where you say, who on earth is volunteering for this? You see, it's incredibly dangerous, and they just follow this one mission, which, again, just like this book, it's not any kind of special mission. It's I can't remember where they're going. Somewhere in Germany. We're going to sort of vaguely bomb some out industrial area of Germany, and it follows them. It's slightly different because they also follow. Spoiler alert: they end up bombing this village outside the town. So they have a story in the village, and they have a story of the German air base that fights them. But it's very similar because it just follows this arc of this story, and you meet all the people, and they talk a lot about the plane and how it works and how difficult it is to fly, and it's a fascinating story. And I think it'd be a really similar film, but I don't think it'd ever get made because of the subject matter.
It reminds me of the Dam Busters, which I suppose won't get made, A, because of the name of the dog, which I'm certainly not going to repeat, and secondly, because they killed so many, I think, like Russian POWs, a lot of them who were women. during the attack. And obviously there's debates about the overall war effort. I don't want to get into that, all that stuff, but it's not quite the clean, operation that makes for Hollywood movies, at least. It'd be a very interesting movie. You should make that kind of movie. Hollywood won't grab it.
If you're shooting Nazis in uniform, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if you go beyond that, it starts to get patchy. Question for you.
Yeah, go on.
Did you watch it in German?
I watched it in German with English subtitles because, as I said, I must have, when they did on the U-boat in the German course, I must have been ill that day because there is a lot of technical stuff in German. It's a very technical language. And I understood most of it, but there's some scenes it was like, what the hell are they talking about? Because it's words like that we've had here, these kind of words. So, that's how I watched it.
Do you think it loses anything in the English translation?
Well, I watched it with subtitles. Is there a dubbed English version? I always think dubbed.
Yeah, there's a dubbed version. I think I watched the dubbed film and I watched the subtitled series.
Yeah, I prefer subtitles. Obviously, you kind of take your eye off a bit of the cinematography or whatever when you're reading for a lot of the film. But I think it's more true to the essence of the movie. So I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to dubbed films, to be honest. Prefer subtitles. Yeah. Okay, anyway, so Elkie, we'll get you back on for some more machine versus machine movies. Thanks very much for joining me on this episode of the Historical Movies Podcast. And of course, if you're watching, if you're listening, don't forget that because we talk about things like death and Nazis, the algorithm is not particularly friendly to us. So if you can like, share, and comment, that helps us massively. If you're on a podcast platform, if you leave us a 5-star review, that also helps the podcast massively. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Historical Movies Podcast.